Welcome to Chattin Sh, the podcast that's technically about gut health, but who knows what pan the chat led up in.
I'm Alana.
And I'm Lisa.
We're here to bring a celeb mate to grill our gut health experts, and nothing is off limits.
From DJs to founders of the gut stuff, we've seen it all. Gut health is complicated and it's super personal, but that doesn't mean it has to be boring.
Gut health is serious shit. It's linked to everything from your mental health to your immune system and way beyond.
Everyone's banging on about gut health now, but don't worry, this is your one-stop shop for gut facts,
Real talk,
and enough laughs to make your belly work overtime.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so not only is it enough to think about our own microbes, but we have little ones that we have to think about their microbes as well. So helping us think about our little ones' little growing guts is Natalie Yerlett, a highly specialist paediatric dietitian with 20 years experience. You're not old enough to have 20 years experience. She is currently head of dietetics for a large London children's hospital and has clinical expertise in gastroenterology, dermatology and allergy. Natalie has published over 17 research papers and textbook chapters, and she never stops asking questions, which could be good for today. You're also a mummy of 3 daughters, so you're perfectly placed for today. And who better to know about this juggle than Dymund, who has 5 kids on top of her content career, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers, plus 5 children hanging off your ankles every day.
Yeah.
I was thinking as I came in, because I have one baby and I feel like my mornings are chaos. Do you have any sort of routine in the morning, or gut friendly or otherwise? Like, how do you get 5 humans fed dressed and out the door?
Do you know what? I used to be so hung up on making sure all the kids are fed, everyone is hydrated. Now I just don't give a shit no more. If you don't want to eat, you're not going to eat. Do you know what I mean?
Fend for yourself.
If you don't want to have breakfast, that's fine by me. You don't want to have, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? I just don't have the time for it anymore. If you don't want it, leave it.
What ages are they all?
So I've got 2-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old now, 9-year-old twins, and then an 11-year-old. I know. The 11-year-old acts like he's 30.
Cool.
And then the 7-year-old acts like she's 40. So it's a lot.
It all balances out.
Manic.
And presumably they all just fend for themselves after a while. But,
To be fair, they all do. I feel like they're all pretty independent. So when people ask me like, how do you do it with like so many kids? I just feel like the more you have, the easier it gets. I don't know. It's true. And then on top of that, like, they're really good kids. Like, they haven't bothered me in terms of like, you know how you'll get like, you know, the babies are not sleeping, like the newborn stage is like chaotic. Like, I haven't had any of that, touch wood. But they've been really, really good. Like, but if you don't want to eat it, leave it.
Yeah, not for you.
Not for you.
Speaking of you, did you do the gut tracker? Because I'm really keen to know your score.
I did.
What score did you get?
I've got it on my phone. Can I bring it out?
Yeah.
Okay, let me show you guys. This is what I got.
48%.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Too bad.
I was actually shocked by that because I don't feel like I eat well enough. I know I don't sleep well enough.
Okay, yeah.
I don't like go to the gym and exercise, but I do a lot of like running back and forth with the kids. So maybe that's why it's 48.
60% for diet.
60% for diet.
87% for exercise.
That shocked me.
That's running after 5 kids. To be fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
53% sleep and stress 0. That's a lie. I'm stressed all the time. How are they going to give me 0%? I'm always stressed. But there we go.
There you go.
That's what I have.
Well done. We'll take improvement. But
Yeah.
50%, like nearly 50%, that's not bad
It's
at all.
not bad, is it?
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
Natalie, do you see a lot of frazzled mums panicking about their kids' gut health? Because I think a lot of people are just confused at what is good, like, you know, all this new stuff in the news about the kids' snacks, and there's so much mixed messages. Like, people are just confused, aren't they?
Yeah, totally. And as I've been a dietitian for a long time, so I've kind of seen it change. And then I became a mum myself. So then even though I was a dietitian, I'd also have those same panics and the same Googling things.
Yeah.
And then I'd Google things and think, no, I'm a dietitian. I know.
I know this.
I'll still Google it anyway. But yeah, for sure. And I think the information that's on social media there's just so much of it, isn't there? So often families that I meet will say to me, but we're sure this is wrong and this is wrong, and actually really worried about it. And it becomes all too much, and then they end up just going, oh, do you know what?
Yeah. Did you panic at the start, baby one, or at all with what you were?
I think I panicked because just like a lot of moms, I spent a lot of time online and all of these like mum forums and stuff like that, prepping myself and just getting really overwhelmed and overworking my brains. So I tried really, really hard to do everything according to the books, right? So at each milestone, like when it comes to like food, like, okay, now you have to switch to like to the solids and I tried to do all of that. And I felt like it was nice and easy because I only just had the one. And then the second pregnancy was twins. And then my firstborn was still a toddler. So I was just like...
How did you do that? So there was only two, so they were two?
Yeah.
No, your
my
first was two when you had the twins?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, I'm still trying to do all of that, right? Because I'm like, I'm going to carry on the same routine as I did with my first, but it was a lot of work. And I didn't really have that much help anymore because with my first, I spent a lot of time with my mum. But then with the twins, I quickly had to go back home because he was already in nursery. So I really, really tried my best also with them. But the one thing I did though, with all the kids, I've just given them like traditional Congolese food, which is where I'm from. And a lot of the food is like healthy food. Like, so there's a lot of like spinach, greens, like beans and stuff like that. So I found that to actually be a lot easier for the twins than it was with my first. Because I would make like the salmon, I'll make like the mashed potatoes, the sweet potato. That takes a lot of work. But with the Congolese dish, I could just make one big pot of whatever spinach, make a little bit of semolina, everyone's fed.
I mean, but that's what, like, you know, I guess Joe blogs and like, you know, my mum wouldn't have known the difference between fibre, protein, you know, how do you, like, I think everyone's baseline knowledge is so low. Is there an answer or a way to get people up to a certain level?
I mean, it's sad in a way, isn't it? Because in the old days, you'd have had like a lot more input from health visitors, you know, Sure Start, that kind of thing. And that's kind of just been taken away. So people turn to social media and other mums in the forums. And I always think, like, you know, even myself when I had my babies, people would give you well-meaning advice, like your auntie or your mum or something. And that would just confuse, because then you think, well, that's not what I've read, or that's not what I've been told, and that's not what's happening to me in front of me with my little one. So it is really confusing, and I think the key place is to get that right. I think that's why I went onto social media myself, because I thought some people with our knowledge, like dietitians, people who have been trained to know, need to have a voice so that people have a trusted place to go to get that kind of information.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's so much like guilt and worry from the start. Like breastfeeding is a great example of that. Did you breastfeed your...
I breastfed, so the only ones that I didn't get to really breastfeed as much was the last born, only because I had like,
a baby hanging
How could you juggle that?
I know, and I really wanted to, because I really enjoyed breastfeeding, so I almost feel like that's something that was like snatched away from me, because I had like, my pituitary gland had like swollen so much, and then like the more I'm breastfeeding her, like the worse it's making the gland, and I was like losing sight. I lost my eyesight.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So then they were like, you need to like, you can't breastfeed her because it's going to get, you know, worse. But yeah, I enjoyed breastfeeding. I really enjoyed it, but I put on a lot of weight, because let me tell you something about like African mums, they will feed you. Oh my God, my mum fed me so much. Oh, I was one chunky baby. Well, I wasn't a baby, but I was definitely chunky. Like, she fed me, because her whole thing is that you're feeding the baby, so therefore you must eat a lot as well, so that obviously the baby could have the nutrients. But I feel like she overdid it a little bit. I was really, really big. But yeah, I breastfed them as long as I could, because obviously I've got so many, and they were like really close in age, like so I really tried my best to give them that good gold juice.
Yeah, but I think you need a village to breastfeed now. Like, you know, it's, you need even like all the, and everyone's, I think now that there's more knowledge about gut health and the microbiome, it is having its kind of second wave again, because I think even like our mum and a lot of other people just didn't, our mum had twins, so she just didn't even try. But I do think there's the midwives are kind of coming around again, aren't they, to like...
And I think there's that social stigma, isn't there? So even when my first baby was 11 years ago, and you'd be in a cafe and you'd be breastfeeding, and some people would come over and say, can you put that away? You know, as if you were insulting them, you know. Source. And I'd be like, no, I'm going to stand firm, you know. And I hope maybe that's getting better. So people just feel more empowered to do it out and about.
Yeah, I do think it's like a personal confidence thing, because I remember I had a little muslin at first, and then about 5 weeks in, you're like,
bye-bye.
Bring it out. And how important are those kind of first 1,000 days for shape. Like, when does the baby's microbes and microbiome, like, when is that shaped? How long does that take?
Great question. So there's really like some key times when the microbiome of a baby is formed, and even potentially even before the baby is born. So there's a little, we don't really know yet, as is the way with probiotic research, but we think actually in some animals as well, we've seen that the microbiome is formed before birth even, but we need a bit more information about that. But the very first day, so when you give birth, how you give birth sort of is the first step to setting up or establishing that microbiome. So whether you're C-section, so if you're a C-section baby, you tend to have the bacteria and all of the microbes that are on skin, which would make sense with it. Yeah. And then if you're vaginally birthed, you would tend to have more fecal and vaginal
Did you give
sort of lactobacillus.
Yeah, push them all out.
On yourself.
Wowzers.
So you're already set up, basically, depending on how you
they can
come
do.
out.
I had to have an emergency C-section, and during this emergency C-section, in which they were trying to basically, my epidural didn't work, so I had a leg that they could, like, I could feel it, and they're like, we're just going to have to go because his heart basically stopped. So it was very much emergency, like button, 12 people run in, and I was like, could I have a vaginal swab? And he's just looking at me like, at least your worries, hun. Your baby's not there. And I was like, what can you do? And they were like, basically, they were going to have to knock me out if I could feel it. They were just, because they didn't have time to get him out. So they were like, basically, scream if you can feel it. We'll let you know. And I'm like, can you have a vaginal swab? I'm like, that's how much I cared about his microbes.
I was going to say the microbes are forefront.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted. But so that's like the first juncture.
So, first juncture. And then, of course, you've got the environment. So what is around you. So if children are born in a city, if they're born in a farm area, rural, all different. Genetics. What then is your first milk? Like if you breastfed, if you have the human milk oligosaccharides that are in breast milk, if you're formula fed. So all of those things are like key things, even if you think within that first day, basically. And then it kind of, you've got those sort of 1,000 days up to the age of 2 really, to really then set upon the rest of the establishing of that microbiome. So weaning, of course, really important. So what you wean your baby on, what they eat, the types of food they eat, when they start eating, all of those things. If they have antibiotics, and you can't help these things, So I often tell my families that I meet, don't worry. There's often a lot of guilt associated with it. So, crikey, I had an infection and I had to have antibiotics. My baby had to have antibiotics. I've caused the microbiome to be terrible.
Nearly had sepsis.
And she was
Ari came out and she was flat for like 9 minutes. And I'm like, don't give us antibiotics. Like, listen, my husband was like, do not listen to a word she says.
I love this. The microbiome is just so.
Then she was like, give them both the antibiotics. Do not listen to her. Yeah.
Oh no.
Crazy, but it's just ingrained in you that you're just like, I think mum guilt just is never. Our friend just had a baby, and I just said to her, like, this mum guilt, it does not serve you. It will happen for as soon as it comes before, it comes in pregnancy. The only person that it does not serve is yourself. Yeah. So let it go.
Because they don't know. The babies don't know.
They don't.
You're just trying your best. Like, mum guilt comes from caring and wanting to be the best, but it doesn't serve.
But do you think the exciting thing, rather than a scary thing, about your baby's like microbes are that you have these other little creatures that live in, around and on us that you can nurture, and if you take care of them, all these different health outcomes, and it's something that we can control. And I think that is like empowering.
And that's always what. So when the mums chat to me and I can tell straight away that they've got this guilt, this fear. I've done this, almost traumatized actually. Sometimes I'm sure you may have felt that. That's what I focus on. So actually, the moving forward, how are we going to empower you to make the right decisions now, all within a balance, so we don't add to anxiety, but to nurture what is there now, and you can make it much better. So once it's set, it doesn't mean that's it, set for life. You can then improve it as you go forward. So,
but I think the weaning journey as well, like, even if, like, you saying, I think you going back to your roots and the things that you would eat probably feels the most comfortable thing, the way that you're most comfortable and relaxed as well.
Because we'd have to have fed them deep fried Mars bars and Greg's stock roll. That wouldn't have been good for your microbiome. I would not have wanted our diet.
Did you feel confident going into weaning?
I did, especially when I went back to like the traditional food, because it's a lot easier to make, and you can make larger portions, and you don't have to worry about what am I going to have for dinner tomorrow, because I've got dinner sorted for like the next 2 days. So it definitely takes away that stress. And then it's good food, because like I said, a lot of the food is quite healthy. There are a few adjustments I had to make. So for example, we use a lot of like palm oil. So imagine eating palm oil like 4 days or 5 days out of a week, like diabolical. So I had to like switch it around to like more healthier oils. But once doing that, but then that came from the mum guilt, right? Because then I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't just keep feeding them this, as much as like it's got like the healthy part of it, but then what I'm cooking it with is not so healthy, so it kind of like cancels that out. But then once I started adding the healthier options, I felt good that I'm feeding them food that is healthy for them, it's good for them, it's going to help. Because with my kids, I don't know if you guys are the same, but the constipation is a mess. It's a mess.
Or the other way.
No, my daughter's more the other way.
It's the other way. Oh my goodness. I've never had a poonami,
Really? You're not? Not really. I think it's because you're giving them so much fibre. But maybe it's having the other way that maybe.
Honestly, my daughter, she was about 4 days old, and I was changing her on the changing table. I had cream carpets. Why?
Oh, girl.
It was everywhere. Like, it literally just hit all over the green carpets, this big poonami, and I thought, here we go, this is motherhood. I remember just it was about 3 a.m. I was like, welcome. What have I done? Covered in shit.
Is constipation quite common with kids then?
Constipation is really common when babies start to wean. So when you start to wean, you shift from like fluids, breast milk, formula milk, to solids, So your bowel has suddenly got to take care of massive fibre molecules, protein molecules that it's never seen before. So it takes a little while to sort of learn how to manage all of those things. So you always see a slowdown. Poo always goes browner. Always goes more like adult poo. It's a bit smellier. Like
absolutely.
Yeah, really common. And sometimes I would often tell, if I meet a family before the wean and I'm helping them, I would always say, just prepare for that. Don't worry. It's totally normal. It's going to be normal.
Sometimes when even with the breast milk, sometimes they can smell a bit sort of like acidy. But they're never like a poo.
They're never smelly.
Is there signs that someone said that they can't? It's like there's signs behind you can't smell your own farts. Is there signs behind that your kids' poo is more?
I can.
I can smell my pot.
Talking out.
I need to find that out. Can you smell your own? I can smell yours.
Oh wait, so you can smell hers, but you can't smell yours.
Yeah. Or maybe I can.
You talk such shite, honestly.
I can now.
Is there anything we can do for kids' constipation when they're weaning?
Yeah, so you can just adjust how much of those big proteins and things that you're giving. So often I would advise you focus on veggies, loads of fibre, obviously. But it's usually when you start introducing the protein that you see the slowdown. So I would, if that is happening and it's a bit too slow, I would actually just pull back a little bit. You only need a little bit of protein. There's a bit of a push at the moment, isn't there, in social media to protein and everything. You need so much protein. Actually, you don't really need that much protein. So babies only need a very small amount, really. So I would just pull back a little bit on protein.
This explains it, because Bear, my son, has been quite constipated. Like, he's been like, I just got in one of those little kitchens and I caught him this morning in the kitchen.
Hanging on to dear life. That was my daughter yesterday.
And I was like, oh my God, what happened in the kitchen? And but he can eat, like, and it's probably too much. I was Googling if it was bad for him, like a whole salmon fillet. He loves it. Plus like half an avocado. He'll have that a day, per day. That's too much.
Maybe a bit
okay.
Just a tad.
Salmon twice a week.
Twice a week.
Yeah.
Okay. But he loves it. He literally, and because he's got really bad eczema, which we'll probably get onto. I always think, maybe it's good for his skin, but
well, it is.
It is. True. Okay. But you shouldn't have a whole fillet each one.
So when it comes to weaning, I got obsessive with it. And now it's all went by the wayside. But she's 3
My mum was giving Alana's daughter sugar under the chocolate under the table, and Alana wouldn't give her any sugar. And Mum was like,
as
anyway, like on her first birthday, she got sugar for the first time in a cake, and then my mum told me like a year ago, well, she's 1.5 now, recently. Wasn't her first time having sugar. And I was like, I will.
On her first birthday when she had it, remember when Mum gave her Easter eggs and she was like banging her teeth off the grass. And I was like, you see,
honestly, like added sugar makes a bad behaviour. Anyway, weaning, like what should we do? Weaning, like I read all the books. I was so obsessive with it. And I just think, is there sort of some simple tips that we can follow rather than obsessing over it?
My first rule, and I say this to all the mums and dads that I help, is to enjoy it. and not get too obsessed with the minutiae of have they had this and have they had that. If you can get your baby through the weaning phase and they like food, you've won. You've won the half of the battle. In that time, it's more about learning to eat. So just start off slow, build up one meal and add in another meal, add in another one a few weeks later, just sitting in a chair and being happy about it, making a mess. That's the thing.
Well, that's my mum's like, oh, she's making too much of a mess with that. I don't know how you put up with that, Alana. I'm like,
I always have my heart skips a beat if I see families mopping up too much. Like, leave it on there, make a mess. Good for microbiome, of course, but also good for them, their sort of sensory learning and how they're exposed and their sort of frequency of exposure to those textures and things. So you just got to keep relaxed, build it up slowly. Of course, it's got to be as nutritious as possible, but also know that there will be times, teething, all babies get poorly, don't they? They go to nursery and they pick up like 25.
Oh, they're naughty.
And it will take a step backwards. And then most mums will say, we were doing so well, and then we've taken a step backwards. So I say, just, that's okay. Expect that, and then you'll just build it back up again. So I think it's a wonderful thing to do. I loved weaning all three of my kids.
Did your lot all just sort of copy each other after a while? Like you could probably get, that's how they learn, isn't it, as well? Like learning from each other.
That's how they learn. And I feel like that's why we tried our very best to sort of like put in all our efforts with the first one. Then, you know what I mean? Because then the ones, so then the rest would follow. They'll look to him for the answers. He's so strong and mighty. Teach us. So they actually do copy each other, and and a lot of the times that like I said earlier on, they're really good kids, so they do as they're told. But sometimes again, I just let them just be kids. Like, do you know what I mean? And I really like the fact that you said like sometimes different things will trigger like their eating habits. So maybe like the teething, or if they're not well and stuff like that. So I just don't even worry about certain things anymore. I just used to be one of those like stressed out mums all the time. I'm worried the baby's not eating, what's going on. Just stress. But I feel like the more I've had experience in mothering, the more I'm just realising you have to just let things just happen. Just happen. Well, I wanted to ask you quickly, Natalie, when is like the best time to give a baby like water? When's the best time?
Great question. So probably don't really need water until they're a little bit older. So even in hot weather, like I would say if a baby's thirsty as such, you just breastfeed more often. If they're formula fed, they can just have more formula, So usually in those early months, you wouldn't give water to a baby in that sense. Once they start weaning, I always advise just like a little beaker, or one of the beakers that's any kind of beaker. Exactly. Just so that they get used to it being there. But they may only take like a sip or throw it over the way or something. So really, that's just for the skill building. It's not really needed for water intake as such. Food has water, so if you've made a lovely spinach dish from your family, that will have fluid in it as well, so people often forget that. So actually, probably when you're getting nearer to the age of 1, really, you probably see them drinking a bit more water. And then as they get older, when you have a snack, you want to give them some water with every meal. But before the age of 1, you don't really need to worry too much.
That was for my mum. That was for you, mum, because she stressed me out. Oh my gosh!
You're not giving them water.
My mum gave my firstborn, I swear, she gave him water when he was like a month old or something.
Because back in the day they used to, didn't they?
Yeah, or tea. My mum gave me tea.
I'm pretty sure we were giving whiskey.
We turned it on. Tea in a bottle. I'm sure I had that. And then she always says, "But you turned out all right." That's it. You don't.
I know some of the stuff my mum came out with when she was. I was like, "No, mum."
Like in those days, they just learned from what the neighbour was doing, what their mum did, and that's how it was passed on. And I think that, there wasn't like didn't know to look at nice guidelines or like, I think that...
My mum always used to go, she's like, how do you... She actually was, it was from a nice place of, I don't understand why you're so overwhelmed. She's like, because you've got all these apps, you're literally tracking every time she sneezes, and then you've got yourself all worked up, and you just need to relax and let your instincts kick in. And I think
same goes with weight. So lots of the families now, they've got the baby weight tracker.
We've been talking about this,
and of course it's if your baby's not gaining weight and you medically need help, of course that's a different situation. But if you've got a healthy baby growing well, you don't need to check weight all that often. And actually, weight will go up and down. And like we see, if you've just had a poonami, your weight is going to be less than if you've not had your thing. So that naturally, baby's weight does fluctuate a bit, but families get really worried, it's dropped. What can I do? And then they'll often change their pattern of family eating to try and accommodate that drop in weight, which actually was going to right itself the week after. So that adds a lot of anxiety to
I feel like with the weight thing, because when you take the babies to like their health checks and stuff like that, I feel like it depends on how the message is delivered, because I remember there was a time when they were like, oh, my baby had dropped, one of the twins had like dropped a lot of weight, and then they didn't give me any more information on that. So I'm going home thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm doing something wrong here, because one is gaining weight and the other one isn't gaining weight, but it wasn't really anything to worry about. But that 2 weeks I was really beating myself, thinking I'm doing something wrong here.
And also, if you're stressed, your breast milk's not going to it's just like that cycle of being stressed, then your breast milk's not going to be optimum, and then
and same with eating. So if you're a stressed mummy and you're trying to feed a little one, they pick up on all of that,
I was
and
just
they're like,
say that
eating becomes like a negative experience, and they just don't want any part of it. I can tell my mum is really worried here, and in your heart you're thinking, I just really need you to eat because the weight.
It's so funny. That happened to me today with my daughter. I was feeding her breakfast, and she was like just taking her time. So I was like, Kiana, you need to eat now. So then she was like, oh. So then I'm feeling, I'm like, it's okay, I love you, it's okay, it's fine,
On the other end of the spectrum, like, my daughter was huge. She was a big unit, and anytime we'd take her anywhere, they go, big lassie, or they'd actually say big laddie. She was a girl.
I was like, it's a girl.
Huge.
Big boy.
She was huge. And she was just breastfed. And then everyone always used to go, oh, it's good, it's better, they're chubby. But like, is there like, should you be worried if they're a big unit?
I love that description. I'm going to use that.
Big unit.
But no, it's breastfeed babies, they regulate their own appetite. Sometimes breastfed babies just like to snuggle on the boob and have a little bit more milk than they need, but that's for comfort, but that'll write itself out, so once they get active and mobile and they start laying down muscle mass, and totally, that'll write itself out.
It's moms who say, she's got good reserves. If she's ill, she's got good reserves. But she's got
remember that when they're breastfeeding, you're like, are they feeding just like their wee porky hand, just like stroking your boob, like
it's comfort zone.
And you're like, isn't that a dummy
hand?
Thank you very much. Speaking of drinks, actually, what drink should we be given? Obviously not vodka. Given our kids, because when we were younger, we used to always have. In Scotland, we call it diluting juice, but I think here it's called squash. Like squash. But is that no good, or like should it just be milk and water, or
I mean, in ideal world, water and milk would be ideal, or milk substitute, fortified milk substitute. But in reality, kids, sometimes they're not very good at drinking water. So my kids have a little bit of diluting juice. I like that. So a little. My best advice is that everything is in moderation. Everything is in balance. Nothing is a no-go. It's got to be like in balance, and not sort of, this is really good for you, this is really bad. It's just actually part of family life. So my children most of the time would have water to drink with meals, and then maybe at the weekends might have a different drink, or have
an apple juice. It's Friday night. Go crazy, kids. What do your kids have?
A bit similar to Natalie, really. I think everything in moderation. My kids, they love drinking water anyway, so I kind of like just lay out their water bottles, just so it's there. Like I'm just kind of planting it in their brains. But just a bit like everything in moderation. We don't overdo it. There are months where I don't buy no fizzy drinks. I don't buy anything that's like high in sugar. So then they have no choice but to drink milk or water. But it's just in moderation. I'm not hung
about it.
No.
Well, then they go to parties and they go crazy.
Totally.
And then they go to parties and they're like, party ring.
My kids lose it.
2 liters of Coke. Exactly that.
You must need so much cutlery.
Oh my god, yes, and it's always going missing. The cutleries are always going missing. What's up with that?
The amount that I need just for one 3.5-year-old, I just think, Christ,
it's a lot. We have about 30 water bottles, because the lid will like go missing, and then it will just turn up.
And you must have like a dishwasher load after every meal.
I am the dishwasher.
You are the dishwasher.
I am the dishwasher, but I wash dishes a lot. A lot. At one point, I bought paper plates.
On the right.
Just for a break. Honestly, I did. I was like, this is getting too much.
Yeah. Are any of your kids fussy eaters?
Actually. So my twin girl, she's no longer into like eating meat anymore. She's like, I don't want it. Yeah, she's like, I don't want it. Like, it hurts my gums. I'm like, okay. What do you mean? Like, what are you trying to say? But yeah, so she's really into like eating fish now. So what I'll do is I'll just have like a fish option for her, and
Chef Dymund, the fish option on the menu.
A little bit. But yeah, I just want her to, because I feel like it's a journey. So she may not grow up to just remain, eating. Was it pescatarian?
Pescatarian.
Yes. So she may not be that, but right now that's what she's enjoying eating. So I feel like I should cater to it. But there's some days when I do just cook like a beef stew, for example. She'll just have like the vegetables with it and like the soup, and she wouldn't have the meat. But yeah, not really too fussy. The one who's probably fussiest is my older son, but his fussiness is weird because he likes like chicken nuggets. So like, can I have chicken nuggets today? No. Oh, why? Oh no, you can't have chicken nuggets.
Yeah,
like,
you just want chicken nuggets and fish fingers.
Yeah,
don't we all?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I wouldn't really say like they're very, very fussy. I think every now and then they just try test. Test my patience a little bit.
They all love chicken nuggets away. Like, I say to my daughter, what do you want for tea? Chicken nuggets.
Chicken nuggets.
Yeah, but why not? They're great.
They are great.
What can you do for fussy? Like, I know this is like the $1 million question. One that everyone asks you, and you're like, it depends on the child. But do you just have to keep? Because my son used to eat everything, and now he feeds everything to the dog, like literally pet, and he started going like yuck. I'm like, what do you mean yuck? And he's like,
that hurts your feelings.
And I homemade, because I've got guilt because we work full time, so my way to look after him is I prep all these meals, like little fibre muffins. He gets like fritters of like courgette, halloumi, blah blah blah, like eats like a king. Because I feel guilty again that I'm not with him, so I feel like if I'm nurturing him through food, it goes. Oh, I'm literally back to cook on a Sunday for ages, and it's like that,
and it breaks your heart. It does break your heart.
It does.
Like, why is it going to the Labrador? At least put it like on the thing, and I'll eat it. Like, did you have to keep trying stuff?
It's so tough, isn't it? And babies and toddlers, children, they all go through what we call the neo-phobic phase.
Oh, what's that?
So there's set periods of time where it's almost like, sort of we're predetermined to have these stages, right? It's almost like a survival instinct. So you just think, actually, I'm out and about a bit more now. I've just got to rein it in, make sure I don't eat something.
Imagine that.
But that's just translated into our modern times.
So they're coming out the cave basically. If they were cavemen and they're starting to see danger and like
there's some berries over there. Oh, hang on, not sure about that. And so it's really primordial. So it's really difficult to overcome that. But what I would always remind families is that's just a phase, and that if you just kind of stay strong through that phase and then come out the other end, they'll come back round. But often it'll be a mixture of things as well. It depends on their age, but they're often just testing you. Like, if I just do this enough times, will mummy go and get a chicken nugget? She will. If I do it really bad, she'll go get the chicken nugget. And there's an element of that. So them just pushing how far you'll go. And if they really scream and really cry, you'll go get the chicken. So there's an element of that. So you have to, it takes a real dramatic amount of calm, doesn't it, to manage this.
I mean, they're maniacs, aren't they?
They're maniacs. But the key to fussy eating is exposure and frequency of exposure. So if you have got a child that will only eat chicken nuggets, what you would do is sort of be really neutral. So you would, try not to be overly like, oh, come on, a little bit, Or if you don't eat that, you can't eat this, and try not to almost just be a bit sort of like,
I don't care.
Dymund said, if you want, guys.
Exactly that. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, so what I eat here doesn't affect my mum or my dad. So being neutral is important, and just standing strong, having your boundaries in place. So you just, that's our meal, we're all eating it, so they can see you eating. That's really important. That modelling, we call it. So we mentioned earlier with siblings, but parents, babies, even before they wean, will watch every move you make, like this. They're basically, their brain is saying, okay, mum is eating that green thing, she's not dying.
Yeah.
So it must be okay.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, as simple as that.
As simple as that. So the more you eat together, the more exposure they get, the more frequent that exposure, the more neutral you are, they will come out of it. You just have to persevere.
Yeah, and it's going through the phase as well, and this is probably quite normal, where he's got his full meal, but he wants whatever I'm having, if that's different. So I had like spicy noodles the other day, I had to put them in, and then I just went, full noodles. Gave half the dog and just like, and I'm like, then all my dinner's gone, and his is the dog as well, and you're just like, But is it certain times that they go through this? Is it like,
is it the same for every child?
Like 18 months?
Pretty much.
What are the milestones?
So you're weaning, when you start weaning, 5-6 months, then you have till about 9-10 months. You have a real window to get in as much variety as possible.
Yeah. They're quite compliant at that
age,
are,
aren't they? Anything you give them, and the more at that stage, the more you can get in, the more mess they can make, the more you let it sit on them, the better. And then they go through a neo-phobic phase. So around like 11 months-ish, usually they'll be like, that thing you've always given them that they loved.
They don't want it no more.
Is the thing that they want. I thought you loved porridge, and now every time I give it you chuck it on the floor. It says stay strong. So there was that key time, and then there were a couple more sort of key times. It's varies slightly then for children, but that's really the set one. And then it'll come again at different periods after that. But it's stressful.
Like the bloody sleep regressions as well. It's like you just think,
exactly that.
I've got another sleep regression coming.
So yours all slept well?
Yeah, when they were all younger, I, even up to now,
and they were breastfed. What the legends?
Yeah. But the thing is,
usually breastfed babies will wake up all the time because they're
they slept through the night. But thanks to my mum though, because she was always like, I know this is probably like weird, but my mum used to say like, don't, like once the baby's sleeping, like don't carry the baby, like just put her down, because then like she'll get too comfortable just being in your arms. So I feel like that's the one thing that I always did, like whenever the baby falls asleep, like, if I don't need to carry them, I won't carry them. I'll just kind of let them do their thing.
It's hard because sleep is similar, and it's linked to diet and their eating, because then you get to the point where when you're weaning, you're like, oh god, are they not sleeping because they've got an issue or they're allergic to something or
and then the fear sets in that they're going to wake up. So if they've not eaten enough, they're going to wake up, and I've got to eat. After that anxiety.
But I guess they're just like little mini adults. Like they sometimes eat more, and then they sometimes, it's like we try and make them into like robots. And it's like sometimes they.
And also in your first year, your growth is so speedy, so you have this like really, kind of large appetite for the size of you. You eat all the time. Then actually after 1 year, everything slows down a little bit. So actually it's probably that they're just not eating as much maybe. And so parents often are like, oh no, and actually they're growing well, they're getting what they need. It's just not quite as much as it was in that first year compared to their size.
So would you say they're eating less, but they're still getting the same amount?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, or for what they need. So the rate at which they're growing just slows a little bit. Okay. Yeah. And then, of course, they'll have growth spurts. We all see that in our children when you have like a week where you think, gosh, or we say,
they wake up
can't fill your boots this week. And my middle daughter is definitely that. She'll just go for it. And she's like, can I have another bowl of something, Mummy? And I'm like, And then she'll have a week where she's like, not fussed. And that's important to kind of recognise that and kind of not push past that, because that's them learning, well, I'm full, I'm hungry, and responding to their sort of body's messages. So if you override that by saying, oh no, but you've not eaten well today, I'm going to give you some more, that messes up how they then sort of interpret those messages for when they get older.
I need to stop then.
And I was going to say,
stop doing that to my kids.
We've started, and this has come from like our childhood as well, of being like treats. So like, if she does, like, she's been getting up early in the morning and we're trying to convince her to stay in her bed, in our bedroom, she can read or she can play Lego or that, but she's not allowed to come through and wake us up. So it's like, right, you can get a treat if you do that. And we had the same, like sugary sort of, I don't like to say good or bad foods, we're seen as like a treat. How do you overcome that of like good and bad foods? And
into adulthood, that takes us into like now we reward, that's our reward system.
I mean, one way to do it is to have treats but that aren't food. So you like a magazine or
that's what I've got for tomorrow morning.
Trip to the park or something like a little bit of time with mummy, or go have a baby chino or something like that. So the treat is still there, but it's not kind of food related.
I had to do that. I had to swap it because all our treats were always like sugary treats, and then how many treats are you gonna have like in a week or whatever? It just adds up to like so much like bad. So we started doing like the magazines, like so we'll go and get a little like magazine with our little bracelets.
They're bloody expensive. All these magazines.
They've come with like
but they're all like it's all the little stuff that you'll step on. That's what it is.
It's just tat. I'm paying $5.99 for more tat.
Totally.
Like unicorn bracelets and stuff like that. Bless them.
Tat.
Oh, you're doing the right thing. You're on the right track by doing that. But the house is messier.
And I managed to convince my youngest that figs are a treat.
So, right. Okay. Maybe I'll try.
So I'm not, you can only have a fig if you're a really good girl. She's like, thank you, mummy. So I bought her some home this week and she was like, yes.
Oh, I love.
Do you know what? If she's really good, I've got a fig tree in my garden. If she wants to come round,
she'll be around.
Heaven. I've got a massive fig tree, so when the time is right in August, she's welcome to cut. If she's been very well behaved, she'll come for a visit to the fig tree.
I'm conscious we're running a bit to time. One thing we get asked about most of the gut stuff is allergies. Someone will say, oh God, my kid's got this allergy or that allergy, what it could do, it's really stressing me out. Can you just touch on a few of the allergies and what the steps you need to take if you think your child does have one?
So there are two kinds of allergies to start with. So there are one type we call it IgE mediated, and that's like the immediate kind of allergies, so swelling and rash, urticaria we call it, but it's like hives, and then can form or turn into anaphylaxis, so that's like life-threatening. Just to change the tone there, didn't I? And then the other form of allergy is the non-IgE mediated, so that's more like a delayed reaction, tends to be more gut related, but also eczema is a symptom of that as well. So there are two types, so that's always the first thing I teach families, because they often get them mixed up and worried about one or the other. Some children can have both kinds. One type, so the IgE mediated you can test for, so if you have to have allergy testing, when you have skin prick testing, that's what you're looking for, those immediate types. The other type you can't test for. So the only way to check if your baby or little one, if you suspect has got that, is to take it out of the diet, say cow's milk, for example, take it out of the diet, put it back in and see if that's made any difference. But I would say there's probably in our country, there's a real over-diagnosis of food allergies, particularly those non-IgE mediated. So I would have a low threshold for removing a food, for sure. Just because if you think from a gut microbiome point of view, from a nutrition point of view, you're taking away a huge, really key element of a diet, and also for that variety. So the low threshold. If you think your baby or your little one has got an allergy, you go speak to your GP for starters. They might help you sort of say, actually, let's take it out, see the dietitian, hopefully. That doesn't always happen. And then we'll put it back in. But it's tricky. And even the families who have clear allergies, they still need a lot of support from a dietitian to then know.
Because the elimination diet is a lot of work to take something out.
And it might be the wrong thing you've taken out.
So people just want a magic bullet. Like you just want someone to tell you, this is what it is, take it out.
And it's heartbreaking, because you often meet families who have been told like the wrong information, and then they'll come through and you think, oh, you didn't need to do it. Right, let's fix it. Let's put all the foods back in one at a time, and we'll see what's going on here.
So there's no set test that could be done where they just say it's cheese.
No, not for that delayed allergy.
No, I thought it's cheese. No, honestly, I really thought it's as easy as that. That was going to just tell you.
There are lots of tests online. Like you can test your hair.
That's all nonsense. Nonsense.
All the hair tests and that. So that's bullshit.
Yeah. I had a lady last week in my private clinic who said she'd had vibrational testing.
Oh, Christ.
And then was that when you have to hold the thing that looks like a dildo?
What the hell?
No, there is something like that. There is one where you have to hold this shaky thing.
It could be. I need to find out.
Not that I know what a dildo looks like. It's just like it's that shape. But someone else said it to me, because we obviously get sent to a lot of people like, is this bullshit? And I'm like, I don't. But it looks like it is. I don't know. I assume so. Okay, so if they hold anything,
if anyone says, you can do this test and you can find like the York test, that's a classic. Send something off and don't
a lock of your hair or a
money.
tooth or something.
Don't waste. And it's always heartbreaking, because often in that situation, families are just desperate. They just want help, and there's not often help available, so they go to somewhere like that. I think, if I pay £250, I'll get the answer, and that's always a bit heartbreaking. So often my job is to unpick the things that have not been necessary,
Yeah. On that, we usually end the show on like a myth or some like nonsense that you've heard in relation to your to feed your kids or anything that you like Natalie to bust. So like, or an old wives' tale that you're like, is that true? Like, is there anything you've always wanted to know the answer to?
There's quite a few, but this one is the most recent one. So my mum reckons that when a child's about to have a growth spurt, they get really sick. So it could be like a flu, cold, whatever the case may be, or like high temperature. But my mum reckons every time the kids are ill, don't worry about it, they're just growing. So I don't know how much truth there is to that.
I feel a research paper coming on.
Maybe it's her trying to stop you worrying and like being positive.
But it's like within the community, they all say, because even my mother-in-law, she says the same thing. Oh, they're growing. And then the next time she sees the kids, she'll be like, look, I told you, look how much taller they are now. What?
I mean, there is no evidence that says that. No.
Maybe it's a metaphor for their immune systems getting just stronger.
I don't know. Or turning their negative into a positive.
Or just a lie.
They're always growing. It just, it makes sense. But no, there is. Your body wouldn't need to do that, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it wouldn't need to lower your immune system.
Yeah, like just get
and then
sick to
if
get
you were
taller.
a baby, because you're growing so fast, you'd just be in a constant state of ill temperature.
Yeah, no,
It doesn't happen. So,
that's a good argument back.
That's a good one. Because
one of the things that most people say to us, like when they're like, oh, my child started nursery, we'll all be, when you should have it on rotation.
Yeah.
What would your top tip be when your child starts nursery to try and help? Because we know the gut health and obviously linked to immunity. What would your top tip be for when kids start nursery? How do we?
So difficult, and it feels never ending. Doesn't it? I heard a paediatrician say the other day that 10 viral infections in that initial few months is normal. So I would always just prepare for it. There's not much you can do, but I think making sure that background of nutrition is there. So often at that age, if diet isn't great, and or babies are having not enough iron, for example, you can be a bit more susceptible to those sorts of viral infections, or they can hang around a bit longer. So I would always just, if you came and I did like a dietetic assessment, I'd make sure there's enough iron, there's enough zinc, there's enough vitamin D in the diet from milk or from supplement. Almost like you've got your baselines ticked off that just gives you the best chance of getting through that.
On the supplement thing, sorry, I've got 20 million questions now that cropping up. Should we give them supplements after?
I was going to ask that one
when
as well.
And how?
Yeah. So most babies who are breastfed need a supplement, so they need a little bit. So often you'll get hopefully your health visitor should tell you that. So you would get the government one is called Healthy Start. So it's just a vitamin A, D, and I think it has C. So
I never gave them that.
The spotlet with the mother panic, the mother guilt. But if you're on formula, you don't need that because that has so much vitamins and minerals. And then moving forward, just up until about the age of 5, just keeping that little bit of vitamin D,
vitamin D
would be beneficial. I
was going to ask about the vitamin D, but because obviously as adults, especially us with the darker hue, we get told to keep up the vitamin D supplements. I think my next question to you was just going to be how long do I carry on with that really?
Until they're 5.
And I would up until 5, but if you have darker skin, I would probably just keep it going. You don't need huge amounts. And sometimes I meet families who have just think they're doing the right thing. So I had one patient who loved the vitamin D spray so much that her mum was like, if you're a good girl, you can have the vitamin D, and she was having it 20 times a day. And we checked her levels and they were
through
the roof, and I had to emergency
get that Lindsay, a magazine and no more right, we always end on one thing that everyone's learnt today that they didn't know. Alana?
Mine is swapping food treats for other sorts of treats.
That was a good one. But the water, the baby don't need it.
And now you're going to go back to your mum and your mother-in-law and be like, guys,
Chill.
Mine's is just keep this. What was it? A Neolithic? What was that thing?
Neo-phobic.
Neo-phobic.
Yeah.
So that every time you just give yourself a dog, but it's just neo-phobic. It's going to be neo-phobic. So that's going to be my new
you can
buzzword.
Impress all your friends.
Yeah.
He's been a fussy little shit, but he's neo-phobic.
It's a neo-phobic. Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did this get you excited? Join our 100 Days to Hack Your Gut Health programme. The link is in the bio.
Come and find us over on Instagram too, @theGutStuff. Pretty simple.
Thank you again to our guests and our sponsor Activia. Hit subscribe. Your gut will thank you for it.